Hi students, welcome to yet another session of my class. We are discussing the paper Work Class 6. Let us continue the topic. Today we are going to discuss about Euripides. The last class we discussed about Sophocles, Aeschylus, etc. And today we are going to discuss about Euripides. Euripides was one of the greatest authors of Greek tragedy. Yes, the last class we discussed about the other two, that is Sophocles and Aeschylus, and Euripides. He was one of the greatest authors of Greek tragedy. In the 5th century BC Athens, his classic works such as Medea, the Bacchae, Hippolytus, etc. cemented his reputation for clever dialogues, fine choral lyrics, and a gritty realism in both his text and stage presentations. So these are the important works by Euripides, that is his classic works, Medea, the Bacchae, Hippolytus. And we can see clever dialogues, fine choral lyrics, realism, and all these characteristics in his classical works like Medea, the Bacchae, Hippolytus, etc. So in the 5th century BC Athens, his classic works such as Medea, the Bacchae, Hippolytus, etc. cemented his reputation or gave him much fame for his clever dialogues, fine choral lyrics, and a gritty realism in both his text and stage presentations. He was also famous for posing awkward questions, unsettling his audience with a thought-provoking treatment of common themes, and spicing up the story with a thoroughly immoral characters. That was his style of writing. That is, he was also famous for posing awkward questions to the readers, then unsettling his audience with a thought-provoking treatment of common themes, and spicing up the story with the thoroughly immoral characters. These are all the characteristic features of his writings. And his plays commonly dwelled on the darker side of existence. Most of his plays projected or dwelled on the darker side of existence with plot elements of suffering, revenge, and insanity. In his youth, Euripides also performed as an actor, but as his voice was not strong enough to carry to the back of a typical 14,000-seat Greek theatre. Yes, in his youth, that is in the early period, he was also performed as an actor, but as his voice was not strong enough to carry to the back of a typical Greek theatre, and he concentrated on his role as a playwright. Tragedy plays were restricted by certain conventions at that period, and we already discussed in the previous class, that is when we consider about Sophocles and Aeschylus. That is, at that time there are some restrictions. There were these tragic plays were restricted by certain conventions. Despite these restrictions, Euripides managed to appeal through the presentation of universal themes such as justice versus revenge, the rule of law against the will of the gods, and the struggle between reason and passion to his audience. Despite, that is, in spite of all these restrictions, Euripides managed to appeal through the presentation of universal themes such as justice versus revenge, the rule of law against the will of the gods, and the struggle between reason and passion to his audience. This is about Euripides. I think all of you understand about Euripides. So we discussed three great tragedians. Which are they? One is Sophocles, Aeschylus, and the other one is Euripides. Next, we are going to discuss about Aristophanes. Aristophanes was a prolific and much acclaimed comic playwright of ancient Greece and a poet of old Attic comedy. That is one of the famous comedians of ancient Greece. He was a prolific and much acclaimed comic playwright of ancient Greece and a poet of old Attic comedy. He was famous for his comedies. He is referred to as the father of comedy, like Aeschylus. That is, is referred to as the father of tragedy, like Aeschylus. Aristophanes is referred to as the father of comedy, and he wrote almost 40 plays during his lifetime. And his surviving works are the only examples of that style, that old Attic comedy. His only surviving works. I think out of this 40, only 11 were survived. And his innovative and sometimes rough comedy could also hide more sophisticated digs at the political elite and deal with social issues such as cultural change and the role of women in society. That is, his innovative and sometimes rough comedy could also hide more sophisticated digs at the political elite and deal with the social issues. Through his writings, he was trying to express some social issues that was existing in the societies, and such as cultural change and the role of women in society, etc. The plays of Aristophanes provide an invaluable insight into many of the political and social aspects of ancient Greece, from the practicalities of jury service to details of religious rituals in major festivals, etc. There is the plays of Aristophanes provide an invaluable insight into many of the political and social aspects of ancient Greece. His genre was comedy, but through his writings, he was trying to express the social issues that was existing in the story. And he also um, uh, tried to express the problems that was existing, that is the role of women in society. Then he dealt with the practicalities of jury service or to details of religious rituals in major festivals, etc. And more concrete are the works of Aristophanes. His plays include the clouds, the wasps, the birds, the frogs, etc. He wrote so many comic plays. That is almost 40 plays he wrote, but I think out of this 40, only 11 were survived. Yes, through his writings, he was trying to express the relevant issues that was existing in the society, relevant issues such as social issues such as cultural change, role of women in society, practicalities of jury service, then details of religious rituals in major festivals such as, yes, through his writings, he was trying to express the important or the relevant issues that was existing in the society, even though it was a comedy. I think all of you understand about Aristophanes. So we completed almost Greek and Roman literature. One more personality, that is Nikos Kazantzakis, one more writer we have to discuss, but we will discuss later. That in the fourth module, you have to study one fiction, that is Sorba the Greek by Nikos Kazantzakis. And next, we are going to start Sanskrit literature. So, we completed the first section, that is classics, qualities of classics, then Greek and Roman literature, then all the important writers except Nikos Kazantzakis, because he is included in the fourth module. That's why I'm not discussing here. So, rest of the writers, that is in the first part, Greek and Roman literature, Homer, Virgil, Sophocles, Aeschylus, Euripides, Aristophanes. We discussed all the important writers who belonged to Greek and Roman literature. Next, we are going to start Sanskrit literature. Let us discuss in detail. Sanskrit literature refers to texts composed in Sanskrit language since the 2nd millennium BC. Yes, Sanskrit literature refers to texts composed in Sanskrit language since the 2nd millennium BC. Many of the prominent texts associated with the Indian religions like Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism were composed in Sanskrit in ancient India. Yes, most of our religious texts were composed in the Sanskrit literature. Literature in Sanskrit represents a continuous cultural tradition from the time of the Vedas in the 2nd millennium BC until the present. Yes, literature in Sanskrit, that Sanskrit literature represents a continuous cultural tradition from the time of Vedas in the 2nd millennium BC until the present. Early works of Sanskrit literature were transmitted through an oral tradition for centuries before they were written down in manuscript or in written form or in manuscript form. The classical period of Sanskrit literature dates to the Gupta period and the successive pre-Islamic middle kingdoms of India. The classical period of Sanskrit literature, it dates back to the Gupta period and the successive pre-Islamic middle kingdoms of India. This period is known for development of Sanskrit literature in all genres such as drama, scholarly treatises, stories, epic poems, literature related to science and technology and the Puranas. So that particular period, that is the classical period of Sanskrit literature, it dates back to the Gupta period and the successive pre-Islamic middle kingdoms of India, and this period is known for development of Sanskrit literature in all branches, in all genres such as drama, scholarly treatises, stories, epic poems, literature related to science and technology and the Puranas. And Sanskrit is written in the Devanagari script. Please note that this Sanskrit is written in the Devanagari script, one of the oldest writing systems in the world. The script they used, it was Devanagari script, one of the oldest writing systems in the world. And some other languages such as Hindi and Marathi are also written in Devanagari. But Sanskrit is the first language to use this writing system. That is Sanskrit literature. Sanskrit has an extremely rich and enormous vocabulary. Around 600 BC, in the classical period of Iron Age in ancient India, Sanskrit began the transition from a primary language to a second language of religion and learning. That is around 600 BC. In the classical period of Iron Age of ancient India, Sanskrit began the transition from a primary language to a second language of religion and learning used by the educated elite. We all know that this particular language was used by the educated elite class only. And around 600 BC, yes, Sanskrit began the transition from a primary language to a second language of religion and learning. And moreover, as an early member of the Indo-European family, you already studied in your history of English language paper that is regarding Indo-European language, Indo-European family. So as an early member of the Indo-European family, Sanskrit is closely related to Greek and Latin and most distantly to English and other modern European languages. And Sanskrit is also the parent of the modern Indo-Aryan languages of North and Central India, including Hindi, Bengali, Marathi, and many others. It is considered as the parent of the modern Indo-Aryan languages of North and Central India. This is about Sanskrit literature. This is a small outline regarding this particular branch, that is Sanskrit literature. I think all of you are familiar with this stream, that is Sanskrit literature. All of you understand. I think all of you understand this session, and there is a homework for you, and the homework is write a note on Euripides, Aristophanes, and Sanskrit literature. Please write your homework and send back to me through WhatsApp. Thank you. Have a nice day. See you again.